Hello, MSOE fans, and welcome to the Raider Report, where we sit down with MSOE coaches to discuss all things Raider athletics, from game reactions to recruiting news and everything in between. The Raider Report has all the behind-the-scenes details and news you want. Our guest this week is Director of Sports Medicine Claudia Curtis. And at this time, I am joined by Director of Sports Medicine here at MSOE, Claudia Curtis. Claudia, how are you?
Great. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, welcome to the program. So let's start. First things first, it's the customary question. How did you become an MSOE Raider?
So athletic training is a very small community, and I will tell you that every job I've ever gotten is based off of who I know, not what I know. So Dave Bogalski, who was the Director of Sports Medicine when I first started here, I met working at the Rock at my last job prior to our baseball field at MSOE being built. Okay. That's where they played. Sure. So I'm in charge of all the other fields there as my full-time job, and MSOE was using one of the fields. So Dave introduced himself to me. We realized, as per usual, when you're in a small field and you've been living in an area for a while, we knew a lot of the same people. His baseball coach growing up was the high school baseball coach I worked with for 10 years when I first moved up here. So we started to develop a little bit of a friendship, and I saw the MSOE position open and was just looking for a change, looking for something different. Ran into him at a training for athletic training students. When we keep them at our sites, we all have to be trained on what they learn and how they learn and things like that. And he asked me how things were going at work, and the rest was history. Within a week, I was probably about offered the job here. So
nice. So staying in that Wisconsin network
absolutely
is what got you here.
Absolutely.
So let's go back a little bit further. So tell me about your history in athletics. Did you play sports growing up? What made you pursue sports medicine and being an athletic trainer?
You always hear that story. I got an injury, I found out what sports medicine was, and I decided I was going to be AT, PT, insert something here. That's not my story at all. Going into high school, I thought I would probably be a teacher, maybe even a music teacher. So a little known fact, I play multiple instruments.
Okay, hold on. We're pausing the brakes. What instruments do you play?
I am a terrible piano player, but don't tell Bailey's mom that. She was my teacher as a child.
Okay.
I'm much better at the flute. But yeah, I come from a relatively musical family. My mom sings, plays piano. Wow. So I was definitely more of a band geek than an athlete in high school.
All right.
But we moved right before I started high school. So I had lived in the same school district, knew all the same people my whole life. And we moved right before my freshman year. Literally the first person I met the first day of school is the reason why I'm an athletic trainer. She already knew that's what she wanted to do for a career, and she had taken like anatomy classes and was a athletic training student, like helper. Mm-hmm. So we'd hang out. She'd be like, oh, well, if we hang out Friday night and you sleep over, I have to go do this double header for baseball. So that's where my love of baseball and my love of athletic training came from, was Saturday morning double headers at the high school when I was a kid in probably 35-degree weather. I learned to keep a book, and I learned that combining science and sports was something that was just a unique opportunity that I got very, very excited about, and really got to spend 3 years of high school plus taping ankles, learning how to do rehabs, and really learning that that's like the environment I wanted to be in forever.
For sure. It's funny you say that, because 35 degrees in baseball is a pairing that only Wisconsinites, I feel like, really can understand. I've learned that at least very, very quickly here. So before we jump in and start getting into the nitty-gritty of athletic training, what are some things that maybe no one knows or people don't understand about being an AT? Because I think from an outside perspective, let's say if you're a parent listening, you think, oh, my student goes in there before practice, they get their ankle taped, they go out to practice. That's athletic training. What really is your job, would you say?
These days is probably a lot of administrative in terms of some of the topics we'll hit on later. I definitely do a lot less patient care than I used to. But we see people as early as 8 o'clock in the morning. We'll see people 12 months out of the year. I actually did 7 a.m. rehabs all summer with one of our athletes because he had an internship. So we really function more like a sports medicine clinic. We do half-hour appointment slots. We do try and check in with our athletes when it makes sense every single day. And we're not a big ankle taping, ice handing out kind of school. We are very much well, you've had knee pain every year you played volleyball. Well, there has to be a reason why. And it's not just because you jump and land a lot. So we try and really look at, how do you move? Why do you move that way? How can we make you move better? Because not only does it get rid of the pain, but a lot of times I'll sell people on the fact that it will make you a better athlete moving forward, a more efficient athlete that, by getting rid of some of your movement inefficiencies. Say you're in a straight line, you're a sprinter. And your first 3 steps off the line, you move side to side quite a bit. Well, how much time and energy did you lose doing that? If I make your hip stronger, that will go away. Inherently, you'll pick up some time on your 60 dash or something like that. So, especially at a school like this, where student athletes respond very well to hearing numbers and quantifications and things like that of results, I feel like it's an easy sell.
Sure.
But I think that's one of the biggest things that we really try and do. One thing I've really tried to do in taking over as a director of sports medicine is explaining to our student athletes how to use medical insurance. Because I will say, first of all, I'm from the stay on your parents' health insurance as long as you can kind of era. I'm from the you graduated with a degree, good luck to you, find your own insurance. But as a healthcare professional, I tried not to use my medical insurance in my 20s because I didn't really know what I was doing with it. And I am certain I'm nowhere near the only person that looks at that and goes, that's overwhelming. That looks like it's going to cost me money. I don't think I really need to go to the doctor. So if I tell our student athletes they need to go to the doctor, one, there's a very strong medical reason why based off of an exam. But also I want them to feel not overwhelmed. I want them to feel comfortable being able to go through that process. And so I explain it as kind of we're training wheels for that situation, because when they were at home, most of the time their parents probably scheduled those appointments, knew who was in network, did all of those kinds of medical things for them. And their parents aren't here now for the first time. And I don't want them to feel like they are on an island handling it themselves. So I'll do things like have the student athlete come into my office, close the door, call their insurance company, ask if somebody's in network, or go on a website and show them how to do those things. We set up that first doctor's appointment for them, get them all set when they go through the door. I said, but now you need to make your own follow-up appointment. So they kind of start to be this very educated user of their healthcare. And I also kind of try and explain to them hurt versus injured and what's an emergency room visit versus this is a urgent care or a specialist visit. If you think you have an ACL tear, the emergency room is never going to diagnose that for you. So if we can make you comfortable and get you to somebody who can, it saves the patient time and money, but also saves the healthcare system some time and money as well. So that's one unique thing that I think over the last few years I've tried to take on more, especially working in this setting where their next stop is to be financially independent, relatively speaking. So I think that's a little bit unique, and I'm not sure that every college tries to do that. Our director of health services, Jessica Morgan, the nurse practitioner here, also shares that same vision on the student side. So between the two of us, I think that's something that's kind of one of our missions to do on campus here at MSOE.
Yeah, no, and that's awesome to hear, because I know just last year I was working construction. I'm 27 years old. Don't like saying that out loud. But I hurt my neck really bad, and I didn't really know what to do, where to go, where to even begin. And then it was like, oh, well, even if I do want to go get this fixed, how much is it going to cost? And it was super overwhelming. So it's awesome to hear that you're educating the students so that these aren't overwhelming scenarios if these, do come up in their regular life. So since I've been here, one thing that's been implemented is a focus on athlete nutrition. Talk to me a little bit about that, what you guys have been doing with the students and why that's so important for student athletes.
Sure. One of the biggest thing kind of ties into the last thing we just talked about, in the sense that prior to coming to college, who made most of your meals? Who made sure you ate? Who made sure that what you ate had decent content? It probably wasn't the student athlete, or it wasn't the student athlete alone making those decisions. And you'll see a little difference in our hockey team because having played juniors, they kind of have had that transition a little bit, and you will see they're further along in their nutrition journeys. But, our traditional 18-year-old student athletes that live in the dorms, that eat, at the campus center, that just have this smorgasbord of food available to them, might not know how to make those choices. So we realize that's a change our student athletes have to experience that they've never probably had to before. One of the other things that, working here in particular, I've never heard before from a student athlete: I forgot to eat. I've heard I didn't have enough time to eat. I use that one frequently. Mm-hmm. But I've never once forgotten that I'm hungry. I've never once forgotten that I've needed food. But our student athletes here, their time is so regimented for them, so structured, so detailed to the hour, that sometimes they go, well, I was doing this lab report because I had to get it done before I came to practice, and I realized I hadn't eaten anything, and it's 2:30 in the afternoon. So one, that's obviously a huge problem in terms of performance in sports, but it's also a huge problem in terms of injury and injury recovery. Our student athletes, a lot of what we see here is not your traditional, well, what's the most common injury in sports? What's the second most common injury in sports? We see a lot of load management related injuries, and nutrition is obviously looking to counter the load that you're putting on your body. So if you don't have enough coming in, you can't have as much output. And our student athletes don't realize that how much food they really truly need. They look and they're going, this is what the FDA tells us, and here's our food pyramid and 2,000 calorie diet. And I'm like, you probably expend 4,000 calories a day, depending on what you're doing. And so then looking at what 4,000 calories looks like, one of just even in visual form of food, they're like, holy cow. But then how am I physically going to get that in through the time frame of a day? And really trying to show them that they're actually not getting as much food as they need. And then noticing that their strength, I have an athlete right now that if I strength test them, their strength's great at the beginning of a week. By the end of the week, they get weaker in just that one muscle group. And I'm like, it's not because you're not doing the exercises or you don't know how to activate the muscles. They're not recovering from your workouts. And so we partnered with Rise Nutrition, which is an app that you can put in food preferences, diet restrictions, activities that you're doing, what sport you're in addition to your sport, if you do lifting, other cardio, things like that. And it's supposed to help you figure out what your caloric needs are, your macros needs, and give you suggestions, take some of that guesswork out of food. So the athlete and I started working there, and I'm going, okay, do you think you're eating enough? Because the weight's stable. Everyone goes, well, I weigh the same amount every day, or pretty close. And they were under by 1,000 calories a day.
Sheesh.
Yeah. So I went, that's not just, hey, you could use another snack. That's like, hey, you could use a snack and a full meal.
Yeah.
So it's, again, our student athletes are very black and white at an engineering school. They very much like formulas and equations. And so if you can go, here's a math number for you. You are 1,000 calories off. And that's 1/3 of what you're supposed to be consuming a day. They're going, oh, that looks very different. So it's a nice resource for Division III schools in particular, because we don't have the resource to hire a dietitian, have somebody specifically tag marked for athletics or anything like that. So trying to find ways to give our student athletes more of a D1 experience without D1 kind of financials has been a goal. And that's where some of the nutrition things are coming in.
Yeah, and I know from my days playing football, like, we would have some sort of calculator we did, and it was like, as an offensive lineman, my calories required per day were absurd. Was I getting them the best way? No, it was a lot of like whole milk and frozen pizzas and really not the best stuff. So to know that the kids can see, okay, I need this much, and also, hey, maybe eat these foods, that's awesome to hear. Another thing that has been on the forefront since I have come here is the focus on mental health in athletes. We've had the recovery room. That's been a big addition here. You've started the yoga program. Talk to me about the mental health aspect, especially at a school like this with such a high academic standard.
Absolutely. As an athletic trainer who won't reveal their age, just know that I've been doing this as long as most of our athletes have been alive now. Mental health was not something that one was discussed or that we were terribly well trained on when I first became an athletic trainer. But it's something that's a huge part of the injury process and the injury recovery process. So, as our world evolves, we certainly realize that using phrases like mental health and depression and anxiety are no longer taboo like they were 20 years ago. But they also are conversations that we're encouraging. And one of the biggest things that I talk to about our student athletes about in the compliance meetings at the beginning of the year, when we talk about mental health resources on campus, off campus, and things along those lines, is that your mental health has an incredibly strong effect on your physical health. Yes, your physical health can have a strong impact on your mental health, but your brain, in my opinion, is the strongest muscle in your body. It has the most control over what you think and how you feel, and that's going to dictate how hard you can work, how engaged you are, how you approach everything that you do in life. So if we only look at, say, your hamstring without looking at the person attached to the hamstring and what they're going through, we're probably only going to get so far. In some people, that's full return, no problems, never concerned about another injury again. In other people, that is not going to be the case. We may never get them back to sport if we don't consider the whole person. So we've really been trying, and I know it's a later question that we're going to discuss, being my staff, but that's something that I would say the staff in sports medicine is incredibly in tune to. And I think that's one of the benefits of having so many people on the staff, is that we're all different personality types, which means certain people just gravitate to each of us individually. And so one thing that we do is that we have, with our appointment-based scheduling, an option for a non-injury meeting. And I put in there in the examples what that entails. And mental health is 100% one of those things. You can come in just to talk to me about those things. But also I tell them, you don't have to schedule an appointment for that to happen either. If you're walking into the Kern and you get a phone call from your mom that your grandma just died and your dog got hit by a car, come straight into sports medicine, close the door, so then if you need to be alone and cry, I can leave the room too, but I want you to feel like you have a space that's safe for you to feel your feelings when something like that happens. And, again, with our student athletes, sometimes just being freshly away from home, they don't know where that support comes from, or if they have that support, and they might be afraid to ask for that support. So I really try and set the tone in our compliance meetings at the beginning of the year, saying that we are one of those safe spaces, and that we keep trying to build a really strong relationship with counseling services and with health services, so that all of our providers, whether it's physical or emotional medicine, if you will, we're all on the same page. We're all looking to fill any gaps in our student athletes' needs, especially when, like you mentioned, we're at such a high achieving school. We know the stresses are coming from everywhere. And as much as athletics is a blessing and a benefit, it can be a stressor too. So we really encourage people to see us as not just here to treat your sprained ankle or worry just about you from the neck down. We're really here for the whole person, and are really embracing that thought of holistic wellness.
So to follow that up, I'm going to spin a yarn here, but stay with me. I'll bring it home. when I was first getting started playing college football, I had a really hard time adjusting, being away from family, being around, a lot of new people in a very competitive environment in college football. And I remember it was probably like the third day. We had finished our second practice. I found some bathroom off to the side, and I remember calling my mom, crying, I cannot do this. And my mom was like, if you can just make it through one more day, like we'll be fine. What I never found out till much later was my mom immediately emailed the offensive coordinator and said, Greg is really struggling, but he can do this. Like, just look out for him. And all that the offensive coordinator did was that next morning at breakfast, he just came up to me, said, hey, yesterday was a pretty good day, huh? And I was like, basically holding back tears, like, yeah, it was a pretty good day. And he's like, today's going to be another one. And I was like, all right. And that just, it wasn't much, but it gave me the reassurance that I needed. For the athletes, is it sometimes the onus on you? Do you feel like that you have to pull it out of them and that they don't want to necessarily come to you? Is that stigma still there a little bit?
I think it's fading more and more. I would say so many of our students here are very introverted. So I don't know if it's truly the mental health part, or is it the fact that you've been at school for 5 days, you've met this woman who told us all the things we're not allowed to do right away at the compliance meeting. Do you feel comfortable now looking at the stranger and saying, hey, I'm struggling? Mm-hmm. But I would say that each year that goes away more and more. You get more of the number of times I've asked a student athlete, hey, how are you doing? And then all of a sudden you see the eyes start to well up. They were just waiting for someone to ask. So as I've been in the profession longer, just lived on this earth for longer, I've started to try and ask more questions and do less of the narrative. Or I'm not really a rah-rah person by design. I say I'll never be a personal trainer for that reason, because I don't think I'm ever going to hype you up to do that next rep. But I am always going to be that person that just kind of looks at you, goes, your face looks not like yourself. And so I'll just kind of go, hey, how are you doing? And so, there are weeks that I'm like, oh, Claudia caused a lot of tears this week, but it was probably week 8 and we had a lot of exams. And I was the first person that just looked at them and asked them how they were doing. Yeah. And especially in this age of technology where there is less and less face-to-face interaction, I think sometimes that just goes a really long way, because no one's looked them in the face a while to go, wait, you aren't yourself. Yeah. Let's get you to open up as to why.
Love hearing stuff like that. Talk to me about the importance of rest and sleep in an athlete's routine. Is it a struggle for athletes to find balance?
Yes, because you'll hear how all week long they haven't gotten more than 4 hours of sleep. And then they'll try and binge sleep on the weekend thinking that will balance itself. They think it's a math equation. Mm-hmm. They go, well, if I need 8 hours of sleep a night and there's 7 days in the week and I'm just trying to get my, 56 hours. Well, if I front end load it on Saturday and Sunday with 12 each night, then I've got a bank. And you're like, no, that's not how that works. And that's probably a lot of why we see a different version of injuries here, or different trends, is the fact that so much of what we see is a load management issue. And to me, if I'm trying to layman's term load management, it's the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing, where you just nickel and dime your body until it breaks down. Well, when do you think your body gets the most ability to recover? After you've had multiple REM cycles. So 4 hours of sleep might get you 1 REM cycle. So you're probably not giving yourself a lot of recovery options. And we realize that we can never tell them, well, 8 hours of sleep is actually going to help you perform better on a test than if you get 4, and have them believe us. There's science that says that after a certain level of fatigue, your cognitive function decreases as well. Certainly your athletic function decreases as well. Your reaction time is slower, and your force output's going to be lower, things like that. But I would say that promoting good sleep habits and encouraging good sleep and getting our student athletes to follow through on that, that's a harder sell than the nutrition piece. They just care about everything that they're committed to, and you have to acknowledge and appreciate that, and know that they're going to go on to do amazing things in life because that's their approach. But that was a huge driving force behind the recovery room. We hear them when they talk about how little sleep they get, and I can't make them sleep. So what can I do for their bodies to mimic something that might get anywhere near what they need recovery wise? That's not a REM cycle, so that they can also study while they're doing the recovery things in the recovery room. So, it's a huge initiative for the NCAA. And I think, their focus on that is a lot with the length of practices that Division I teams spend, in a given week as a team, and their time management from an athletic standpoint. I will tell our student athlete recruits and their families that I treat our student athletes like they're Division I, not because I think the physical demands mimic anything like what they do at the D1 level with the travel and the 4-hour practices and those kinds of things, but because our student athletes allocate their days no differently than a Division I athlete. Their days are planned out from the minute they get up till the minute they go to bed. It's just the content of those hours trend way more academic than maybe a Division I athlete's does, but the demand on their body, the reserve that they need, is no different.
For sure. And before we transition here, let's get a little braggadocious for just a second. We keep just saying recovery room. Let's explain to the listeners what exactly goes on in the recovery room.
Sure. So we have a completely separate room from the sports medicine clinic area. Prior to this year, it was kind of all put together. We just had a little recovery station where we have recovery-based technology tools. So looking at things like the Mark Pro, which is a electric stim-based unit that you put on a specific muscle group, the pump that it causes by making that muscle contract isn't at a high enough level to tax the muscle, but it's enough to bring blood flow to the area and rejuvenate the muscle, if you will, without them actually having to, do work. We kind of use it in place of ice for things that either a direct blow, ankle sprain, something like that. The way it stimulates blood flow and the recovery in that space has done remarkable things for our athletes that have a big fat swollen ankle in particular, or have taken a puck off of something and have a dead leg, things like that. So there are 3 Mark Pros in that recovery room. There's 4 sets of different compression-based therapy. So these are all air pneumatic-based compression, where it basically, again, cycles blood flow, compresses the area segmentally, so they can sit in these massage chairs. We've got 6 massage chairs in there, and put their legs up. So gravity's helping them. These tools are helping get I have 200-pound legs and I only weigh 100 pounds kind of feeling out of those legs between workouts, cycle that blood flow. Well, like I said, that's a similar concept to doing a recovery bike or a very light workout. But how many student athletes can do their calculus homework while on the bike versus sitting in a massage chair in a calming, quiet environment, away from, noise and commotion and, distractions like they can in there. So we had run into a space where we originally had that part of our sports medicine area. And I loved it because now I'm seeing a bunch of athletes that are not injured. They're just taking care of their bodies, and I'm getting to know their names and building a rapport, and they're just coming in essentially to say hi and keep working on themselves. And now that they're in a separate room, I get to know them as well. But there were so many of them that had become such of a focus of what we do to promote injury reduction, essentially, that we were running out of room to treat our patients that needed to do the rehab and the soft tissue work and have one-on-one time with us. So Bill and I basically made the recovery room of going from vision to reality, because it's been something that's been discussed in the past, but we didn't know where to put it. We wanted a dedicated space, and I know that we missed the area that we took it from, that was media day, but our student athletes have, like, I was hoping for them to enjoy it. The things I hear on a weekly basis about how much they love it, if that's my lasting impact on MSOE athletics, I've done a good job, because they already love it, and our goal is just to, make it feel like home on the inside. We haven't even done that part yet. It's still white walls, and still feels more like a classroom than a home. So we still have work we can do on it. But
that is the one critique I do have, is the white walls. The white walls are a bit harsh given the rest of the vibes in here. But I'll start the petition that we can get a plaque out there that it's the Claudia Curtis Recovery Room.
Well, I should plug our team physician really did help us fund that room through Dr. Jamie Edwards. It was his vision of, supporting MSOE athletics is what got us there. But
don't want to steal too much.
No, I can't steal his thunder. He's an invaluable resource to us.
So let's get into everyone's favorite segment. Let's do Raider Rapid Fire. Just want the first thing that comes to your head. You're walking into a sporting event. What's your favorite song that could be playing, or what's your least favorite song?
Favorite song, because now again I'm showing my age, is Welcome to the Jungle, because to me that's Friday night football under the lights. I would go with a Jock Jams kind of thing too, because that was the music that made you think you were going to sports, and that's what gets me in the mindset, and the vibe gets me hyped. Worst stadium song, how many people do I want to offend right now? I don't like Taylor Swift at all. So you pick a Taylor Swift song and I'm out. That doesn't say sports to me. Sorry, Travis Kelce.
You are not the first person to say that. It's actually been a pretty common one, that people don't like hearing Taylor Swift at the stadium.
Perfect.
Favorite cartoon?
I didn't answer this one because I couldn't decide. So you said rapid fire. I'm going to go Flintstones.
Flintstones. Okay. Are you a Wilma or a Betty? If you had to, what do you think you are personality-wise?
I'm going to bet I'm a Wilma, because as a kid, I liked Betty better. So that, to me, means everything that annoys me about Wilma is me.
That's probably a safe pick there. Your favorite place to eat?
I'm a big sushi person. I like to try... On Sundays, I give myself like a self-care kind of Sunday thing. So I don't want to cook, so I'll get sushi. Maybe I paint my nails that night. Maybe I put a movie on, that sort of stuff. So I try and pick different sushi places about every Sunday if I can. Obviously, I've been doing it long enough. There aren't that many. We live in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
But I would say if I had to pick one that's probably my favorite, like if I'm just going, I know whatever I order off the menu I'm going to like, I'm going to be happy with the price I spend, it's Kyoto and Greenfield.
Good to know. I will add that to the list. Your favorite athlete? You could be growing up, could be right now.
I picked growing up, and again, showing my age here, but I went Steve Kerr.
Steve Kerr. All right. A role player on the 90s Bulls. I love that. I am a role player kind of, like, that's the kind of athlete that I gravitate towards, that I'm impressed by. Like, everyone can say they're a Michael Jordan fan. Yes, your work ethic is, no one can contend with. But Steve Kerr knew exactly what he could do to make that team better. He also knew that he was nowhere near the best player on that team. And so he knew that players like MJ were probably going to get into his face. And I'm sure he was that guy that it didn't matter how close you got to his face. He kept his gaze looking straight at you. He just went, yep, that's what I'm going to do to get better. And nose to the grindstone every day. Worked as hard as he could probably to get every ounce of potential out of him. I think that probably is also why he's such an amazing coach at this point. I would make that argument about some of my favorite baseball players being catchers for the same reason. No glory. Work your butt off every single day. You may be the smartest player on the field, but absolutely none of that's coming back towards you in terms of huge contracts, right,
fans, all of that. But those are the kinds of people I notice in sports.
You're a real one. That was a profound answer that I did not expect during Raider Rapid Fire. Okay, favorite TV show side character?
I'm going to go Leonard from The Big Bang Theory.
Okay. For sure.
That's 100%. I forgot to answer this question. I couldn't pick, but the humor that he infuses dealing with what he deals with from Sheldon, those probably were some of my favorite moments of the show. Plus, watching him give those moments and knowing that Kaylee Kyoko couldn't not laugh during them, I was like, those are the perfect responses. So,
the best Girl Scout cookie.
I picked tagalongs, which are also those peanut butter chocolate patty things. I never know what different groups call them. You know, it's like a regional thing. But yeah, I'm a peanut butter chocolate girl.
Okay. All right. That's fair. That's, for some reason, that one doesn't do anything for me, but I can't speak bad about it. And then the most important question, my favorite question to ask everyone, you're going to the movies, you're getting a full order, you're getting a snack, you're getting a drink, you're getting a candy. What are you walking out with?
So I'm going to walk out with popcorn for the snack. I don't know if other snacks actually exist at movie theaters because I would never get anything other than popcorn at the movies for a savory treat.
Yeah, when I was growing up, my dad was a big movie nachos guy.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, and then I know that a lot of people I know now are movie hot dog people. And that is something that I can't necessarily get behind. I'm all for bring your food into the movies. I'm all for it, but there is a line somewhere.
Yeah, hot dogs are for the ballpark, not for the movies.
Open air.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what hot dogs are for.
Whole room of hot dogs.
So popcorn.
Popcorn. I gave up soda a long time ago, so the drink order is gonna be pretty boring. I would drink a water probably at this point, but back in my soda drinking days, I don't think I would ever find this at the movie theater, but I was a root beer girl. So if they had a root beer, I was for sure getting to drink. And then my candy is going to match pretty similarly to my cookie. So I would get Reese's Pieces, not the peanut butter cups, because if I only had 2 of those and the movie's 2 hours long, I'm real disappointed when they're gone.
Right.
So I would get the pieces so that you could enjoy it for as long as possible, but still get that chocolate peanut butter fix.
For sure. Have you ever been someone who's add the candy to the popcorn?
No, I am you're at Thanksgiving and your meal doesn't touch each other kind of person. So no mixing.
Good to know. Yeah, no, there's lines between church and state, and that is one of them.
Yes.
All righty. So let's get back into things. We already talked, you said, being at MSOE, the most common injuries we see are, the load management injuries and students not getting enough rest, whatever it might be. I want to talk to you about what your mindset is, because you're kind of in a unique position. You're kind of a fan, but you're also looking out for the well-being of all these students. Describe your mindset during events. You're right on the bench for hockey, for example. Do you just watch the game like a normal spectator? Let's go, guys. Are there guys with nagging injuries that you're specifically watching during the game? Describe what you see unfold.
The first thing is head on a swivel, try not to get hit. Because I have one of the hockey players saved my life, I think, in an away game this year, because he's 6'5". And so for me to be able to see on the hockey bench is a little bit of a challenge because they're on their skates and 6'5". So I have to stand on the actual bench part to be even remotely close. But the gentleman who's 6'5", I can barely see over even when I do that. So puck came in hard. It hit him right in the chest. So it may have hit me closer to my head had he not been standing in front of me.
Sheesh.
So that was a little eye-opening moment. And I mean, I've worked football sidelines for over a decade, and I'm used to the fast moving, the coming right at you kind of thing. Now, at least on a football sideline, I can move a lot more easily.
It's not a 6-inch wide bench.
Correct. And yeah, one of them bounced off the back of the glass and tagged me in the ankle, and already. So I'm like, you can't take the number of times I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, let's go off the bench just in case I'm not looking, because I seem to have a magnet.
I have noticed that, and now I know why you do it.
Yeah, a little bit it's the sound piece, but for the most part, it's saved my own life since I'm not wearing a helmet. But to get back to one of the things you said, I absolutely am watching that game kind of knowing my personnel in multiple ways, knowing who's coming back from that nagging injury. The other thing, and one of the biggest reasons I'm on the bench as opposed to next to the bench, which is things we've done in years past, is I know my guys well enough to know who tries to sell a fall, who's trying to get that call. And we all know that sportsmanship or lack thereof, that gamesmanship happens in sports. But I know there are certain guys on our roster that if they are down for more than about 3 seconds,
something's wrong.
I need to be at the door. Yep, I need to be at the door waiting for the official to stop play because they're not getting up without me. And there are those characters in every team that you work with. In my time with professional indoor soccer, I got very comfortable knowing who was going to roll around to sell the call and who was going to pop back up and get on defense right away. So being on the bench really affords me that field vision or that ice vision to know my players a little bit and know who I'm like, especially if they're coming back from an injury and I saw something and I'm like, that, first of all, he normally gets up right away. And second of all, I saw how awkwardly he fell and what's going on with him. I'm certainly more in tune to that. We have discussions in the training room a lot of what kind of fan are you when you're watching games as an athletic trainer. And I think especially because my early career was at the high school level for so long, so you're always taking care of both teams. I always kind of felt like I needed to be neutral because the next thing you know, you're on their bench treating one of their injuries and you want to be like, yeah, way to take them down. And you're like, So I do feel like I golf clap a lot and probably don't have a ton of facial expressions watching the game. And so it probably looks like in my head, I'm like calculating angles or something that somebody, well, that looks like enough for an ACL tear. I certainly don't try and go doom and gloom in that regard, but I definitely know who I'm kind of keeping an eye on, who I know has a little bit of more of the flair for selling a call and who grew up, we're told if you don't get up off the ice, no one's picking you up.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that glimpse into the inner workings of Claudia right there. You educated me that it is Athletic Training Appreciation Month. So tell me a little bit about the Avengers you've assembled down there on the first floor.
Yes. I love to highlight them anytime I can because the 5 of us are all so different, but also have the same goals in mind so well that I think that we really complement each other. I did try and take this question and turn it into like actually naming my staff after Avengers. But I'll be honest, I don't know that much about the Avengers movies. And I think if you had given that question to anybody else on the staff, they would have had answers.
Sure.
But I just was like, I picked out Iron Man for Travis and then I just stopped. So, okay. I would say like each one of us has something that we're particularly more gifted at or adept to than the rest of us. And I think that that's such a wonderful, special, unique trait because it allows us to work to create the best healthcare possible for all of our student athletes. Because there's going to be a time, no matter how many years of experience you have, where something stumps you. And sometimes just having that fresh set of eyes or fresh set of ears to listen to what's going on, they catch it. You're like, oh, shoot, yeah, I didn't even think about that. I've gotten so tunnel visioned into this one thing that I didn't even see that. So that's one area that I think is excellent. But also, I'm not a big power athlete. I know it's surprising looking at me, but that's just not my area of expertise, whereas some of the rest of my staff, Travis in particular, he has a huge interest in strength and conditioning. So being able to take, I may take an athlete so far and go, okay, here's what we're still missing, and hand them to Travis and have him take them home. In my last role, I worked professional indoor soccer. Like I said, those athletes feel very much entitled to world-class treatment. And to their credit, they this is their livelihood. Their body is their livelihood. And when they've been in different organizations within the same league, some of them have different resources than others. So one thing they they very much wanted a lot of hands-on manual therapy. They want their body to feel like a temple before the games, things like that. Well, the only time we ever had massage therapists there were the day of the game. So I got very quickly, after being in a high school setting where you do almost no hands-on treatment, to being in this setting. I had a very sharp learning curve for manual therapy, and as a result, I do a lot of instrument-assisted soft tissue mobilization. I feel very in tune to people's trigger points and things like that. So sometimes when other athletic trainers are going, hey, I just can't get this moving again, they might call on me. I think that as much as we all are very concerned with mental health, and the value that it has on your physical health and well-being, and just how much my staff is full of very caring individuals. We all have different personality types. So, some of our athletes are going to feel way more comfortable opening up to Anna because they have similar interests or similar personality types, where some other ones are going, yep, I'm really looking for my mom at college right now. And then they come to me. So, like I said, each one of us, I think that we also are in great situations where, because we divide by sport, Bailey's work with the women's soccer team is phenomenal. How they understand what she's looking for mechanically to clear her for participation. And, they know that they can go and talk to her about things. Ryan's really developing a great relationship with men's lacrosse and showing them, the way lifting works from a injury prevention standpoint, kind of how to bulletproof your body, if you will. And I think we've been able to place people well. I think men's volleyball and Anna really get along. They both have some similar goofball energy that, they really relate to, where, we found good fits where the personality just builds that rapport, builds that buy-in. And like I said, I couldn't be luckier to have such a group of caring, hardworking individuals that really, we all have that same mission of trying to create the best healthcare possible for our student athletes and, that great outcome. We also really love to win. I know it's really strange because all you ever hear about is how coaches want to win and they think athletic trainers don't have that same mindset. And I'm like, oh no, we want to win. There's never a time where I'm like, our best player, he really should be out, but I want to win. Like, I still have to go ethical, but I'm like, there are days where I'm like, I'd really like to say yes, even though I know it's the wrong answer, just because we love to see our team succeed. They feel like such a win for us. Now, the win feels a lot sweeter when I'm like, yeah, that star player shouldn't play. And then the next time he plays, he scores a goal, gets an assist, and, and we win in overtime or something like that.
No, but it's awesome. And you can see the passion that you guys bring to work on a daily basis. And you can see it in the relationship that all the ATs have with the students. I've only really been around, a handful of sports in my short time here. Most of the time it's been with Bailey and women's soccer or women's basketball. But those girls love Bailey. Before the game, there's always a little crowd grabbing Jolly Ranchers, shooting, with Bailey. So it's awesome to see that camaraderie you guys have built with the athletes. I have one final question before I get you out of here. First off, you set the length record. You beat Bill's record. So thank you. This has been awesome. You guys are in a unique position. There's not really parents and alumni networks for donating and fundraising specific like all these other teams have. How can people help support Raider Sports Medicine?
That's a good question, because you're right. We don't have this network, but all the athletes are our athletes. So,
True.
In some ways, it's a little different too. Like I said, in our past, our team physician has really done a lot in terms of supporting us financially. But, Giving Day is coming up. There is a write-in section there. And, if you want to put MSOE Sports Medicine under that area, we're certainly, as we've discussed, looking to expand things with the recovery room, just creating more services for our student athletes to really target that holistic wellness, whether it's earmarking things for mental health or nutrition and things like that. We would gladly take the support and the donations. Otherwise, it's just coming up to us at, games and events. I still love meeting parents that are like, oh, it's senior night and I have no idea what the parents look like, because when do I ever see them in a college setting like I did when I was in the high school? And they come over and they're just like, oh, my son just says the nicest things about you, and I just really appreciate so much, the care. One of them I actually ran into at a hotel at one of the away games, and they were like, "You must be Claudia. You're we just hear about you all the time," and it was just really, really sweet. So, of course, donations are always welcome. We're always looking to build our program and things like that. But the kind words are also, and being able to place a face and a name and knowing where your sons and daughters came from and why they're such amazing humans is always great and heartwarming for me too. So
yeah, that's awesome to hear. Well, on behalf of all the students, coaches, parents, I want to thank you for all the work you do here, and I want to thank you for taking your time to join the show.
Happy to come. Thank you.
Another thank you to Claudia for taking the time to join us, and a big thank you to all of the ATs here at MSOE. We all appreciate the hard work that you put in. You can follow Raider Athletics on YouTube at MSOE Raider Athletics, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MSOE_Raiders. Don't forget to find us on Spotify too. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, repost, share, and get the word out to all your Raider friends and family. We want you to be heard. Mention us on social media and tell us what you want to hear about. Go Raiders!